Welcome, and let's continue with our next normal discussions with a quite intriguing title, which is Electric Cars versus Pharma Hybrid Engagements. What will stay, right? So my first question, or maybe first of all the introduction, we have Felix Jackson from medDigital. Hi Felix, how are you?
I'm very well. It's a pleasure to be here.
And we have Danilo Pagano from Lundbeck. Danilo, same question for you. How are you?
Everything is okay. The weather is not well in the beautiful Denmark, but still good.
Okay. First question: who owns an electric car?
Me.
Okay, good. And will you go back to normal before electric cars, or will you stay with electric cars?
Well, it's a great question. In fact, it's a question for today. And I'm absolutely convinced that they are the future. It's the future because they're cheaper, easier, and much more pleasant to drive. The trouble is that they're expensive at the moment, but hopefully as costs come down and they become more second-hand ones around, it'll get cheaper to drive them.
Exactly. Well, Felix, I always agree with you, but with that I can't because I'm a huge petrol head. So
that is not good. Now we have a policy in the company, so we have to move all of us to electric car in 2 or 3 years. In the transition, we are going hybrid. So
great one.
I've got a very good friend who's a petrol head, and he drove my car, it's a Nissan Leaf, so it's not even a top of the range electric car, and he was blown away by it. Much faster and better to drive.
Acceleration, exactly.
Drive one, and then you might not be such a petrol head.
Okay, gentlemen. However, we are not at Top Gear. We are at Next Normal. So let's move forward to our first question, which is it's not only about digital, but rather about delivering customer experience driven and meaningful engagements, right? I think that this is something that COVID taught us for sure. But how did your organization adopt to that? So in this, let's say, shift going fully to digital engagements. Maybe we can start with you, Danilo, because you're coming from a particular pharma company, and then maybe we can speak with Felix on the same question, because you are having this bigger angle from different pharma companies, right?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Dario. So first of all, we don't say digital anymore. So we don't mention the digital word anymore. For us, it's a lot about omni-channel engagement. It's a lot about transformative projects that can drive the future model of customer engagement. So as Lundbeck, I think we were pretty much ready even before the pandemic. Of course, when I say ready, it was more in terms of tool and platform and even processes. But of course, people were not ready. So the company, to your question, has embraced the multi-channel, the omni-channel approach. We have what we call lighthouses project in place. That means transformative projects that are bringing into our commercial organization new platforms, new ways of working, but also new mindsets for the people on the ground. I'm talking about field force, marketing and medical people in the head offices. This will be completely, let's say, reshaped in a way that it will be only about customer experience, will be only about customer centricity, and of course, even more compared to the past, content is king. So we have to deliver, and that's the ambition, I believe, the right content to the right customer through the right channel at the right time.
Thank you, Danilo.
A few words we plan to do.
Thank you, Danilo. Felix?
Well, I think it comes down to what this topic is, as in we're talking about electric cars for a good reason, which is that there's kind of 3 types of cars broadly at the moment: petrol, hybrid, and electric. And the question is about hybrid cars, because is it worth going for a hybrid car? Petrol stations are everywhere. Everyone knows how to drive them. You can fill up almost instantly. An electric car, of course, is, in my opinion, the future. Cleaner driving, particularly if you fully charge them on renewable sources. They're better to drive, more comfortable, more easy, and the battery's recyclable, etc. And we've got this thing in the middle called a hybrid car, and a lot of people are buying them. They're a big market. But in my opinion, hybrid cars are a bad petrol car and a bad electric car. So therefore, they're not worth going for. Just go electric. You won't be disappointed, particularly as charging times speed up and the number of chargers available increase. It adds a few minutes onto a journey. It's not really a big deal recharging an electric car versus all the benefits, it being a nice car to drive and it being much cheaper to run and it not creating the emissions that the other cars do, the environmental benefits. So the question is that the same for reps? Are hybrid reps a bad thing, or are they adding to customer experience? And that's what I think today's going to be really interesting to delve into and understand, because we've got these traditional reps who've been out there 30, 40 years, really experienced, highly trained, very talented people. And then we've got the kind of virtual reps, which have been coming about, particularly in the last year and a half, who I'm seeing fantastic statistics showing that they provide a better customer experience than these traditional reps. They're getting better results and better feedback from customers. And so it's really interesting to see whether, how that's going to be combined and what the future holds from that.
Thank you, Felix. Danilo?
No, I mean, I agree with Felix, and back to his example, what if the hybrid car is just a transition period to allow people to get a little bit more comfortable with this new technology, right? And as I said, I'm now a new hybrid car, so I have my power station at home. I'm learning on how to, for example, drive the car on electric engine, park the car, and then get the, let's say, recharge the car in the right place, in the right parking lot. So can be an expensive transition, but very often, coming back to sales rep, we need time to adapt. It's, in the end of the day, it's a learning curve for all of us. And in our case specifically as a Lundbeck, we do have a plan, to reinforce the message that the hybrid world is in front of us. Next week, we are attending the first hybrid congress ever in psychiatry, that is the ECMP in Lisbon. And will be something new for all of us, because then we will have physical delegates, but we also have remote delegates. And the complexity as a 2x factor, because then we need to manage expectations in the room, but also trying to interact and engage people all over the world connected to the Congress. The sales rep or the field force is now playing a crucial role. What we have seen during the last 18 months is that the evolution can be also towards a model where they can be much more than salesperson. They can be consultants, where they can consult on how technology can help, even in telemedicine or in patient consultation to our physician. But they need the right tools and the right knowledge, plus a new mindset. And it's, believe me, this is probably the biggest challenge for the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think your point about hybrid cars being transitioned is really interesting, because I think that for electric cars, you just go for it. It's quite easy. It's not that complicated. But of course, your point is beautifully made, which is that's not the same for reps.
Yeah.
It's a much more complicated environment to move into this hybrid or virtual world. And it seems easy, just get on Teams or Zoom or whatever platform you're using, hop in. But actually, it's not. It is much harder than people think, and it does involve new skills and new capabilities. And the transition is interesting because, of course, for the last couple of years, the pandemic has meant that people have had to make the transition. They didn't have any option last year. They had to go probably full virtual. I know there's some reps still out there occasionally seeing customers, but most people have basically went from full face-to-face to full virtual in a few weeks. And it was a massive transition. And so that's one reason why I'm quite interested in this idea of hybrid, because, will it come back in where people won't lose this virtual component? Unlike electric cars, they've had to make the transition. They've had to just jump in it and get on with it. And in a way, we've been playing catch up a lot, training people after the event, after they've gone virtual, and then saying, I need more training, I need more help with this. And we've had a lot of engagement through the training sessions we've been running because of that, because people have, it's not this theoretical thing they might have to adopt in the future. It's actually they're there trying to run it, realizing they need help. And then we've run training sessions with them, and they've really been very engaged It's been very interesting to see the pull on training and capabilities where normally it's being pushed on people, if that makes sense.
Fully agree, Felix, except electric cars. So. Okay, my next question. The hybrid model challenges the traditional sales rep, right? But will we see a bigger role of the rep similar to an MSL? Or will the, let's say, position or the skill set of the rep just simply change? Because I think that nowadays we really see a big difference between a typical MSL who maybe has an amazing articulation of the medical information, but is not a good articulator of communication skills. And then we have the medical sales rep who is very good in communication, but maybe not so good in medical information, right? So where lies the truth? In the middle, on one position, another? What do you think?
This is what I said before. I mean, we do envision an evolution of the sales rep model that is, I would say, much more towards the MSL model. This happened during the pandemic. When we talk about transformation, omni-channel approach, the overall thing, right? I mean, everything was ready before the pandemic. We had the platform, we have the tool. Was just a matter of adoption, and the adoption was almost zero across the globe. I mean, with differences, of course, in the different geographies. Like in Asia, most likely there was a higher adoption, but still was very low. What happened in the pandemic is that our field force on the ground had to survive, and then they started using those tools. And on both sides, I mean, field force and customers and physicians, they realize that these kind of things can work and can, to some extent, simplify their life. So this is gonna stay, and the rep is gonna evolve. First of all, is already an hybrid rep. We do have many regional geography. Asia is an example, but also US. I would say, especially in Europe, France, or South Europe, like Italy or Greece, where the sales rep is already an hybrid rep. But now the next step is, as I said, to be even more, something like in the middle, as you said, Dario, with an MSL, can consult more, can deliver type of content that can fit more our customer needs. Having a role of an hybrid rep means that you have a lot of digital, or what we call MPP, non-personal promotion touch points with our customer. But this means that content plays a crucial role, because compared to the past, a rep was there in the waiting room, and no matter what, so customer, physicians had to see them. Now they get an email, they get a digital invitation, and they can easily decline if the content is not in line with their needs or their, let's say, expectation. So the hybrid rep will evolve in a consultant person who can consult on content, on patients' unmet needs, on patient support materials, on technology. We have a big trend on telemedicine in many countries across the globe, and physicians and patients are not ready. What if our field force can consult and can help on that? How do we envision an evolution of the role in this direction? Those are the topics to me on the table.
Definitely. Felix?
Yeah, I mean, the tension between a sales rep being commercial push and a medical MSL or medical regional medical advisor being more kind of non-commercial pull, where customer asks them to come in, I think is a really important dynamic. And what I see is it's very closely related to the products. The more complicated products you have, the more medical support customers need to prescribe those products. So if you're dealing with very complicated medicines that have difficult prescribing, or different adverse events, or in a very complicated area, then they're going to be pulling more on medical support from companies to ensure that they can prescribe it correctly. And my overall view on the industry is the products getting more complicated. A lot of the simple blockbuster type medicines have been identified, although not all. There's still ones coming through. The days of hypertensives, which are pretty me too, and it's all about market share. Those days, I think, are disappearing, and they're being replaced by oncology, biosimilars, very, very complicated medicines that need a lot of support. So that's naturally drifting the expertise required by the company. The expertise the companies are having to provide through their representatives is becoming more complicated and more more medical. But I'm a big fan of these kind of super reps, as I often call them. These really talented, very well-trained expert people who really understand the products. You don't have to be a MSL, a medical person, to be able to know the science and know the products and add value to those interactions. And if you're doing that, you will be called back in. You will be having meetings with people. They'll be using your knowledge and having those calls to make sure that they can prescribe the medicines in the right way. But I think we're moving away from just people with BMWs driving around the country, just repeating the key messages. That those days are disappearing.
Yeah, definitely. Good point. Which leads me to another interesting question, which is almost 2 years we are in this whole situation of transformation. Don't call it digital. I fully agree with Danilo, because it's not about digital anymore, right? It's about strategy and change management and so on. And based on your learnings, what advice would you give yourself 2 years ago?
Well, from my side, Dario, it's training. As I said, our people were not ready for that, even though everything was in place, right? And among colleagues with my same roles or job profile in the industry, we have been discussing of this digital transformation for decades, right? For years. So platforms were there, marketing automation, databases, different channels were in place. What was really missing was the readiness to use those tools in a seamless way to engage customers. So when the pandemic happened almost 2 years ago, we were not ready for that. Our people on the ground were not ready for that. So there was, let's say, a transition period where, because we had to survive, so they were then embracing the tools and the technology and the different channels to then have a different engagement. But this took time, and of course was not a painless process. So adoption curve, training, change mindset. And those are the usual suspects, and still again the biggest challenges in every industry. In this industry, even more because it's very traditional and conservative. So the advice would have been train more, train on the job, learning by doing, force affiliates, markets, field force, and people in HQ to get ready, because something can happen and then we need to react quickly. And this was not done, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Felix, your learnings, you're coming from a solution manager, from a technology perspective, you already had lots of the solutions ready even before COVID, right? So what are your biggest learnings, or what advice would you give Felix 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think building on what Danilo says, what we're basically trying to do is create digital content. And I know people talk about omnichannel, and I totally understand that and agree with it. But the reality is most of omnichannel is that it's getting to grips with digital. People can do the traditional channels quite well, so they're trying to learn how to do the digital channels and choose which ones are important. So a focus on digital within omnichannel, I think, is essential. And so capabilities come out, very important. People don't have the capability often to run virtual events, digital meetings, develop digital content, etc. So what we end up doing in order to try and do that, we end up helping teams a lot. And as Danilo says, we've got to train people. To go into that in a bit more detail, we think of training in 4 different tiers. So the first tier is information and guidance, maybe just some guidance written in the company or some policies, that kind of thing. The second level is self-directed, which is often what people think of as when they say training. So kind of clicking through static kind of courses or modules, PowerPoint slides. And that's often all people get in companies, and that's not sufficient. They have to have the other tiers in our opinion as well. The third is then workshops where people get to practically apply that knowledge they've got from the slide decks, from this self-directed learning. They can then apply it in specific scenarios, working with their colleagues, troubleshooting and practically trying to work it out. And they're quite generic, quite theoretical examples, but it means that they then have a practical application of it. And the fourth level is mentorship. And this is what most companies don't provide at all, is that when people go back with that knowledge to the real world, they then don't get much support trying to apply that learning to their day job. And we think that's really essential, is then helping people because they encounter issues. The real world's never quite the same as what the practical was in the workshop, and they have to have help to apply that, or they have questions, things they've missed. And if you can do those 4 tiers, we find that then that application of that training goes in at a much higher level, and people are able to learn much more and do the digital activities much better.
Exactly. Thank you, Felix. Last but not least question, what is your estimation when it comes to the percentage? Which percentage will remain, let's say, face-to-face, which percentage will remain digital or online? Let's call it digital, right? So any estimation once we go out of this whole situation?
Well, from my side, I don't have the magic number, but I can easily say that many of these new way of interactions will stay. As I mentioned earlier in this discussion, we have the biggest psychiatrist congress in Europe in few days, and it's going to be virtual, hybrid, so that means 50-50. We do already have, clear, let's say, signs in Asia, in China, where now, even farther than this, we are selling drugs on internet. And this happened during the pandemic, and the percentage of these internet sales are going up and not going down. Because in the end of the day, Dario, when people learn that tools are useful and also that they can even better plan their working day, I'm talking about our customers, of course, then they embrace the solution and move with this forward in a new kind of landscape where we need then to also adapt ourselves to the new scenario. I was chatting with my colleague from Greece a couple of days ago, and he said we do have now, and this will stay, a percentage of 50-60% of digital interactions for physicians on the Greek islands, the big ones like Crete or Rhodes, because what we discovered during the pandemic was that we were, of course, 100% virtual. We double our sales because that was a moment for us, to increase the touch points and the interactions. I do expect that sales rep, because sales rep were flying to those islands, the sales rep will still fly there, but for 2 or 3 days. And then the rest of the week, they will stay remote. In France, it's the same. We have an explosion of telemedicine. There is a biggest player over there. It's called Dr. Lib. They have 60 million patients per month on the platform. That means physicians get trained on telemedicine. So when they turn their attention to the sales rep, the field force, they say, let's have a virtual call. Let's have a virtual engagement rather than a face-to-face on Friday afternoon or, over the lunch when I'm more available. And you don't have to come here, because currently 60-70% of my patients' interactions are online.
Definitely, especially the rates of remote treatment, I think is extremely huge, because we also see that even the American players are coming to Europe, and we see that even on a month basis, right? Felix, same question for you.
Yeah, so exactly. So people have had to do it, so they've done it, and they realised it's fine, it works. There's quite a lot of benefits to it, and so doctors are using it with their patients and becoming comfortable with that. Reps are using it at work and becoming comfortable with that, and of course they're using it with each other and becoming comfortable with that. So as regards the percentage in the future, I think 100% of representative will be hybrid. They will have to be a representative. You will have to be able to interact with your customers virtually, digitally, run virtual meetings, interact with people through Teams or Zoom or whatever the platform is. You would not be able to be a representative without that. Just like even a traditional rep couldn't really be a rep without being able to use a phone. It's the same thing now. You can't be a rep without being able to run virtual meetings and interact with the customers virtually or remotely. And the interesting thing, I think, is how much of it will be remote. And I think that kind of slightly depends on the representative. I think if you're, let's say, a representative, a hospital account manager in London, you might end up doing more face-to-face because you can Zoom around London and see people quite easily. But if you're a medical science liaison for an orphan medicine where there's only 2 of you covering the entire country, or potentially even Southeastern Europe, then you won't be traveling so much. You'll be doing a lot more virtually. So it depends a bit on the medicine and your setup. But I think as companies realize that virtual works better than face-to-face calls, and we might have time to delve into that a little bit, but it's related to the content. It's more valuable content, more transactional. Doctors are getting more from it than they do from a chit-chat and a sandwich with a friendly rep, whereas they get a 5-minute call online and they get exactly what they need when they need it. And so because the content's there, you're going to find people are going to be drifting more and more virtual. So I can see virtual becoming quite a significant proportion, probably more than 50% of calls will be done virtually, and a smaller proportion will be done in face-to-face, depending on your setup as a representative.
This will be very interesting. Maybe I can also add something on that. I mean, we all know that live events are back in the States, right? Many, even big gatherings are back, either in live or hybrid format. But Vietnext, for instance, the biggest attendee is actually coming from the United States, which it's not UK, previously was UK, but now it's United States, which really makes me wonder, okay, if you have the chance to go to live events and now you attend Next in a complete virtual event, I mean, obviously hybrid is the answer. But maybe my final word, if I can say so, once everyone moves to that model, once everyone figures it out, then the question is how to differentiate from the competition, right? Most probably customer experience will play a significant role in that whole multi-channel, omni-channel loop, but we will see where this will lead us, right? Any final words, Danilo, Felix? We are left 1 minute, so any final word how to differentiate in the future once we are going into this full direction?
Well, this, I mean, from my side, and this was already said many times, I think content is even more the king in this new approach. And when it comes to the field force and people on the ground, will be really the ability to orchestrate a seamless experience, a seamless customer journey across all the channels. And this is something, I mean, that I think the overall industry is working on. Let's see. But then this is crucial, the overall customer experience across the physical and non-personal promotion channels.
And I totally agree with that. So we're helping our clients develop really, really high quality content that you can then deploy into multiple different channels, digital and Salesforce. And it's that consistent, high quality scientific content. And if you get the content right, the topics right, the delivery of it right, then you end up having these fantastic interactions and having these close relationships that then lead to successful business objectives.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, Danilo, Felix, really glad conversation. Hopefully next year live, not virtual, not digital, in Dubrovnik in May. So take your notes and really hopefully we can finally shake hands and meet with each other. So I really missed that. So looking forward to it. Have a nice weekend and take very good care.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.